Alright, so I've been out here a little bit working on a little bit of the wiring, getting the bumper a little bit more mounted. It's still not perfect, so I have to adjust a little bit. Did finally connect all the ground wires for the headlights and turn signals and everything. I'll tuck those away. What I'm going to do next, well, I'm going to do a couple things. Have to actually, well, I should probably get this wheel well installed, but this is just pretty much a junction block for the negative side or the ground. This one I'll only use for pretty much the fans, so two of them for fans, the transmission cooler, and then one coming off of it to actual ground. So that I'll get that mounted probably somewhere just hidden, so that way they're all in one spot, and then just have to run one wire from there to probably a chassis ground, which I'll probably have another ground strap there also. So that's what I'm gonna do there. I'm not sure if I want to use one of these, probably get a tap and clean that out, clean the threads out, or just weld. I'll probably just use these, clean these up front and put a bolt through there. Yeah, that'd probably be the easiest way. If I did do a ground, it'd probably be on, or weld something on, it'd probably be on the side. But I think, yeah, clean those threads up, get that one out of the way, and probably have something right around there. Yeah, that's probably where this ground will go. Clean off some paint around it, so it's good ground. But yeah, that's what I'll do up front. I still need to get some, I think I have some self tappers laying around. Get some self tappers and put the body to frame grounds on, so those will need to go on also. And then in the rear, I think I picked up a few bolts that I'll probably grind them down in the back so they're flat. Not these ones, but kind of give you guys an idea. Just grind that down so it's flat. Find a spot on the rear frame, one on each side, and then weld those to the frame and use those as grounding spots or grounding points. So I have one on this side for the battery, and then I'll probably do another one on this side for the fuel tank, but I have to keep in mind from this side, keep it out of the way for when I run the exhaust. So that's the plan. I don't think I showed you guys the mounts for it, so that's them all painted. Like I said, I couldn't get a can of black spray paint to play right, but it's pretty much how they'll go. This one I'm thinking about, instead of sandwiches in between, have that one over the top of it, so that way when I do throw the carpet and everything in, there's a little bit of room to fit stuff in between there. Once it's all bolted down, it'll secure it. This side, obviously that's the shorter one, so I think this side with the mount for it, wherever it is, you'll have enough room to go in between, and once the carpet and everything goes in there, it'll be just fine. But yeah, that's about it. Once I get all those once I get those welded on and start grounding everything, it should all be coming together. Still need to mount the fuse box, get this all wired up, or relay box. So I'll use one of these existing bolts and then probably have to make one more. So get that mounted about there. All the wires will pretty much run out the bottom. Probably fish them through this hole. Just nice and easy. I could hide this a little bit more, but if I ever need to get to it, I don't want to have to struggle to. You know what? Maybe even just put it on the inside. So that'll pretty much be the same place, and all the wires would be hidden a little bit more. So I think that's what I'm gonna go with. Just put it right there. So yeah, let me get that all mocked up. start wiring this up. I went over a little bit of it on the inside. I'm not sure if I'll put it at the beginning or just throw the video in here about how I'm gonna wire this up, or towards the end. I'm not sure yet, but I went over how I'm gonna do it and why. Let me get this mounted up. So this will go in the trunk area right off the battery. Yeah, so I'm trying to get a little bit more organized. What I think I'm gonna do is, I think this is 8 gauge. I'm not sure. I'll check on that one, but I think if I had more of these two, I'd definitely run them. But, or at least more of this one. So this is extra wire from the paintless kit. It's pretty thick, it's pretty good. It's actually the size that goes into the fuse down there. So I'm gonna use this to, it's gonna come off the battery, and then that's gonna run to the other side for the relay box. And then I'll just splice some wires into this, probably some 10 gauge coming off of this, into 3 different sections. I'll go into the fuses. So that's how I'm gonna get power from the junction box over to the relay box. Yeah, it should be plenty. And then this should be enough, so I don't have to get extra to run to the transmission cooler. But we'll see. We'll see. But that's kind of the idea I have. So it's about to start getting hot. It's 88 right now. It's probably not even, I guess, 11 o'clock. So it's going to heat up a little bit more. So I'm trying to knock out as much as I can before it gets too hot. Alright, so I pretty much have everything laid out to start. Like I said, I will have to pick up a little bit more wire. I don't think I want to run the 8 gauge wire to the transmission cooler. So that leftover wire was 8 gauge, so I feel a little bit better than it being like 10 or 12 gauge. So that should be plenty to run from the junction box to the relay box, and then I'll just splice it off when I do the fuses. So it'll be spliced off, and then one wire will go into one side of the fuse, and then from the fuse it'll go to the relay. So yeah, but pretty much I'm gonna get this knocked out. I'm still not a fan of wiring, but I'm not gonna do a how-to on how to do it, but I will cut you guys back on once it's done and explain where everything's wired and where everything's gonna go to. So yeah, I don't know why I'm still holding one of these. I wish it did come with different connectors. I thought it did, but might have to go pick up some. So I'll cut these off and try to find type of connector at the auto parts store, so that way I can just plug it in instead of having to hardwire it. So have to keep that in mind. Might make a parts run later today, get the bike out. So we'll see. But yeah, just gonna get started with this and cut you guys back on probably like 5 hours when I finish with it. Nah, it shouldn't take that long, but I'm going to try to cut everything to length, like when I do the crossovers from the fuse to the relay, try to keep those tucked up and real tight to the well, I'll show you guys. So like a crossover from there to there. Try to keep it as short as I can, so try to measure them, have them all the same length, try to make it look a little bit look a little neater in there, so it's not looking like one's short and one's long. So try to keep it all looking good. And then obviously the wires coming out of there, running to different places. Probably keep that all tucked down low, zip tie it so it's not just all over the place. But I'm gonna try to keep it looking good. But yeah, I'll cut you guys back on once it's all finished. And then the spare one, I might just run a couple of the connectors there so it keeps it into place. But yeah, cut you guys back on here in a little bit. Alright, so got a couple of them done, and then I was thinking about the trigger switch, which would be off for the Holly system, and that just opened up another can of worms. So I could put the 87s in there for the power to the fans, so I could run those. I'll do that in the 10 gauge, but the one that I was a little worried about was the trigger. So I came over to it and I was like, all right, let's see where these wires are on the Holly system. So the trigger wires are on a different connector, so eventually that will go into one of these inputs. Where's that? Yeah, I'll plug into here. So for fan 1 and fan 2, I believe they're the gray and yellow is fan 1, the gray and red is fan 2. So I need to plug those in, see where it's gonna be located, and fish them through the firewall and see where I want to route them to the relay box. So I might come all the way back over this way and run it through one of these holes here. So that's probably what I'll do, and then run it to the relay box. Just have to figure out the length of wire I need and everything. So I could probably get a little bit smaller wire. But I think if you run it longer, you're going to step it up a size. So I think the 14 gauge I have might be a little too big for it. I'll double check. But yeah, those are the 2 wires you need from there. But I think these white ones, and then the gray and black and gray and green, I don't think I'll use. So I have to get that all figured out. And I was looking a little bit more, and since this is the Terminator X Max, it has the transmission control stuff. So like I said, this is where that other can of worms comes into. This these wires here, I think it's just 4 of them. Yeah, so 4 of them. So, well, these and this. So I don't think I'll use that blue and white one. I think that's for attack. So I'm going to go with digital dash eventually. So that will be capped off and put to the side. But with these here, the green one, I think that'll be the trigger wire for the fuel pump. And then this red one, I believe that goes, which one is the red one? I think that's the, so the green is the fuel pump, the red to the fuel pump and injectors. So yeah, the green I'll use it as the trigger wire for the fuel pump. That has its own relay and everything already I need to hook up. The red one will be the power to it, so I'll have to run that one either directly to the battery. Yeah, it says directly to the battery. Probably could get away with just running up to the junction box, but I think I'll just get some more wire, keep it all on the inside, and run it directly to the battery. So I have to keep those 3 in mind. The pink and gray one, those ones are off of the painless system. I think one's an accessory, and then the other ones for like if I had lights in the shift or anything. So I'll cap those off, tuck those away. But these red ones are red, red and white, black and gray. These are for the transmission. So I think, what was it? Black would obviously need to go to a ground. The red and white, I'd have to find another 12-volt switch or source for it, or put it on the relay. So I'll probably have to climb up under the dash and find a fuse or something that's a 12-volt switch source and plug the red and white one into it. the red one would either go directly to the battery or the junction box, and I think since it's already in the car, I'll run that one along with this one straight back to the battery. And then the gray one, I need to wire it to the brake switch or brake light switch, so yeah, I have to do it to one of those. That's why I kept both books. So I know mine, I believe it has the 4 pins on it, so 2 of them already hooked up, and then the other 2 will be for, I think the gray one was the torque converter lockup. So yeah, so that's what unlocks it when you step on the brakes. So yeah, just another can of worms. You gotta keep an eye out for all that. Or hold on, there's okay, yeah. So it's all the same wires, and like, well, they are the same wires. So I don't know if these are tying into each other or what, but I'll go over them here in a little bit. For now, I'm gonna try to just knock out one thing at a time, just focus on that fuse box. So I need to grab these wires and see the length of them. But yeah, it's a whole bunch of stuff. I know like the one on the Elco doesn't have all this, so it's a little bit easier, but we'll make it happen. And now I'll also have to figure out which wires from the Slapping Mechanics flex fuel sensor and one wire alternator, see where those plug into. So yeah, I'll put this down and figure it out, and once I figure everything out, I'll cut you guys back on and go over everything. Alright, so finally starting to mess with some of this wire. I took the dash out to give me more room to work with, but it's all tied together. I know I was working on the fuse box, but this is all tied together. Came in here to get the trigger switches for the fan. I had those separated, so those will go through the firewall eventually, along with, let's see, the ground wires. I'm gonna ground them, chassis ground them to the engine bay. So those will go through with the fan wires. So separate all those. This red and white wire off the main harness, that's what I'll go to the pink coil wire. So I need to bring that through the pass through, and that's what will connect to this. So we're all good there. This red and white wire, this is coming off the transmission harness, so I need to find a 12-volt switch source for that. And luckily enough, I have another pink wire. This is for just an accessory wire. So I went back through to look at the painless book, and of course you don't wire or don't use it to power the fans, but it is a 12-volt switch source. So come down here, switch power. This will be connected to a 12-volt switch power source. So that's what I'm gonna use, is this accessory wire to power the transmission one. So I know where that one goes. Will go here. This gray wire, like I said, that's coming off the transmission one also. That will go to the brake switch, and that just leaves me these 3 wires here. I know it looks like a lot, but cleans up nicely. I definitely have to get some more wire. So the 2 reds will go to the battery, and then that green one will go to the fuel pump or the sending unit. So eventually that will tie on or tie into, I believe, one of these gray wires for the trigger for the fuel pump. So that's how I'm planning it. I know the fuel pump and everything, that'll be probably tomorrow. Need to get on that, get the fuel tank back in, and get all that stuff situated. But that's another video. But yeah, I know it looks like a little mess here. I zip tied the relays and stuff up here for now. I'll probably throw some self taps in there, or there's already some holes in there, so probably put a couple there. Might put them all along here. I think there's room. I cleared the dash, so might zip tie or self tap all of them separately. Just keep it in line, give it enough room to plug back into the ECU once they are mounted, so have to keep that in mind. So I'll go back in and put electrical tape over these, but I like to put the heat shrink on top of that. So they're not used for now. If they are used eventually, I could always go back and do that. Same thing with all these. Like I said, I put electrical tape on there first, and then went through with some heat shrink, and well, on most of them except that one. Just go back with some heat shrink and put that over top of the tape and heat it up and keep it just in case I ever do need to use those eventually. Just cut them off and they're there. So orange wire, that's part of the painless kit, so that's for the cigarette lighter, I believe. So eventually I'll go to like a USB charger. That's all radio stuff. Still need to go back and watch the Sloppy Mechanics video on the flex fuel sensor and everything, see where that plugs into. But overall, it looks like a mess, but it's slowly getting tamed. So I'm gonna get everything routed, the stuff in the engine bay, throw that through a wire loom. Thought I had a gasket for this down here. Eventually I'll get one, but for now, so it's not rubbing, I just took some what is it, like the windshield wiper hose, or just took some hose and slice it in half, and they make good gaskets for now. But eventually I want to close that up, and of course I messed it up trying to mess with it. But yeah, let me put this down. It's starting to get hot again, so I might get these routed and end up calling it a day. Like I said, it's showing 96 in here, so woo. Yeah. But yeah, so all this is done. I think I might have to de-pin one of these. So I know on the Terminator it wants the fan triggers as ground, so those are going to 85. And then I think I did the same ground for the transmission cooler, so it should be able to stay the same, but we'll see if I need to move the 86 to the 85 on the transmission cooler or not. But yeah, it's getting hot. I'm starting to get sidetracked, so let me put this down, knock this out, and get out of the heat. Alright, so looks like a little bit of a mess, but it all makes sense after a while. Have both relays in. I didn't put the transmission cooler one in yet because I'm still trying to figure out how to wire the thermostat switch. So I think if I just wire one of them or both of them together, it acts as a trigger once it heats up. So might just be one wire split off to both ends of that, or just one wire to one end of it. So haven't put that in yet. Haven't put the second fuse in yet either, but I guess I could, but I just left it open. Eventually I'll put have a spare fuse there, or a spare fuse and a spare relay. I'll put some of these in the slots just to hold it in place, but for the most part that's how it goes. To me, I know what's going on here. It might look like a lot, but the red loops are for the fuses. So one side is to the 30 on the relay, and another side of the fuse is going to be power or from the battery. So that's how I did that. The blue ones are going to be powered to the fans, and the black ones are the grounds. the white, they're going to be the trigger wires. So those ones will go into the red and or the gray and red and the gray and yellow from the Terminator X. Those will tie onto here, and they'll be the trigger wires. So as far as the fans are set up, all the wiring is done with the relay. I still have to do the ones for the transmission cooler, but that'll be at a later date once I get all that situated. It's nothing to pull the 2 bolts, poke some more wires through, and call it good. So originally I was going to run this, it's an 8-gauge wire. I looked up in the painless book. This 8-gauge wire, so I'm going to put another ring terminal on it and run it from the junction box on this side coming directly from the battery. And I picked up an, I know it's black, but I'll just keep in mind when I'm doing all my wiring and stuff. One will be just a junction box to get power to this side, so I don't have to splice three wires off of here, make it real bulky. I'll just run power to this junction box and then run 3 different wires to each different fuse in the relay box. So I'm gonna do that. This will be mounted somewhere else, so I'll probably be mounted out of the way a little bit to this side, and then eventually you just have one cable coming to the ground on the frame. And I was thinking about just cleaning these threads out, but I think I'm gonna remove some of the paint, weld a bolt onto it, and then I'll use that as the ground. I'll do one on each side just so I can ground the motor to the frame. Yeah, but I think next would be just to pretty much get all these wires situated and run the triggers for the fans. So I'll do all that and probably end up calling it a night. Well, it's already a night, but it's cooled down. So yeah, but that's it for this one. Well, I'll throw this in place and then cut it back on for a quick second so you guys can see how it looks. Definitely need to order some more wire loom, and we'll go from there. I did mark on the top of the lid like how I'm gonna have it. So fan 1, fan 2, transmission, cooler. If I add another one, I'll just put a little note in there, but I kind of know how everything's situated. I guess the triggers are going to be the only 2 that are different, or that will really matter. Well, no. Yeah, well, just going to have to keep in mind which one is 1 and which one's 2. I might put some heat shrink on one of them, or have a different color connector or something. So the way I'm planning it is it's going to be fan 1, that's going to be fan 2, so this one cuts on easier. I'm pretty sure with the turbo and everything in this area, it's going to be the hotter side, so get that cooling down a little bit more, and then the second fan will come on. Wasn't able to find any type of connector, so might just I'll use the, which one is it? Yeah, no, it's a mess, but just use different connectors, put them on there until I can find ones that actually seal up, and then I'll just cut them and redo them. But I left plenty extra wire, so there's a little bit of play. I could hide some wires, but let me throw this on and call it a night after that. Alright, so that's pretty much how it's going to look in there. You see it's nice, out of the way. So I get to it pretty easy. Unless I did what Warren G-Bike did, which was pretty much a smooth engine bay. I think he has delete plates here covering this up. So if you don't have them, you know, that's a good spot for it. Be able to take the top off fairly easy. You get to all the fuses and relays. put back on. See all the wires. Eventually, I need to order some more wire loom to get all those tucked in there. This will go back to the cooler or transmission cooler. These ones will go over, they'll go in a loom, but they'll go over into the, pretty much run inside the cab and go to the trigger switches for fan 1 and fan 2. These blue wires, only did the blue because that's what's on the fans already. Everything else red and black, huh? But yeah, these are blue. So the longer one is fan 1, but I just threw a piece of tape on it just to keep everything separate. As far as all these, I'll still have to throw the connectors on there and get all those put onto the junction boxes. So get all these, like I said, I'm thinking the negative one or the ground I'll put right about there. You know what, I'll probably hide it a little bit more, probably put it down there somewhere, but I'll get all the grounds terminated there, and then the one for the positive, I'm thinking about putting it right on the side of there, drill a couple holes inside the frame and just have it mounted right there. So that's what I'm thinking. Like I said, it's probably going to go right there for the most part. Just have to see where I want to mount all this stuff at, so I know how much of these I need to cut down, or I didn't want to go. These are pretty small wires, just trigger wires, so kind of went with, I think these are 14 gauge. Probably could have went a little bit smaller, but with the length of the wire, I want to keep it a decent size, so I didn't want to go like 10 gauge or something, so I went with a smaller wire, but not as small as what's on there already, or not as small as these though, so you gotta keep that in mind. I think with everything, with this relay box, you go up to 10 gauge on it. With the thicker wire, it is a little bit harder to work with sometimes, so it's kind of bulky in there now. If there's a bunch of thinner wires, it would have been perfectly fine. I think everything, for the most part, is 10 gauge. They go 12 gauge on the fans, just because of the length of it. It's not that far, so should be okay. It's like 2 feet maybe, so that's why I went with the 12 gauge, and then went back to 10 gauge for the transmission cooler because that is a little bit farther back. So I'm still learning, but Google's your friend, helps out a lot. But yeah, that's pretty much it for that. Got that situated. I really need the wire loom because I don't want to connect all these and then have to, well, it's split loom, so I'll be able to wrap it anyway. I know it looks a little congested up in there, but everything's fine. Once it's all in place, nothing's really going to be sitting on any of the fuel lines or anything. Everything's in the wire loom, so should be good there. I think with this firewall pass through, I think once these are in a loom, there's enough room where the transmission harness is to feed through. There's a slight gap, so we have to feed those through there, along with the sloppy mechanics, the flex fuel sensor, and the alternator. So be plenty of room for that, and then I'll have to bring 2 wires through, and those will go to a ground on the frame. So either that, or it could just extend them all the way to the battery, all the way to the back. So they're just pretty small wires, so that's what I'm thinking about, just feeding them through here. You know what, those ones might feed through the bottom here where the battery's cable's coming through, and then just ground them out to the frame with this ground for the motor. So that's probably what I'll do. Yeah, but that's about it. I know it's been a bunch of rambling, just thinking out loud lately, so it's turning into longer videos, but just trying to put the information out there. I know I've had a couple people asking me questions about the setup. I might say one thing in the video, but it might be something else. So I don't know. It's just a lot of information, a lot of trial and error, just going with the flow. But yeah, that's enough of me talking. It's getting late, so we can call it a day.